For people who have won a vacation from a game show, how was the actual trip? Towards the end of her life, pretty much housebound due to copped, my very intelligent mother started entering competitions online to keep her brain active as her body deteriorated. And she would win little bits here and there, a CD, a bottle of perfume, some DVDs, etc. Then one day she got an email from the Guardian newspaper telling her she had won one of 5 top prizes in a holiday competition, winning a £10,000 2-week trip to Peru. Everything was included, a full itinerary tour, bed, and breakfast accommodation in 4 * hotels and all flights and transfers. Cue excitement and joy before she eventually came to terms with the fact that she was far too sick to go. She was on piped oxygen in the house, so going somewhere where oxygen is thin was a really bad idea. They were very good and offered her basically any alternative up to the same cost. But no one would insure her to go anywhere, and she came to the realization that she would never travel anywhere again. She gave the holiday to me, and I ended up going with a mate, and it was a great holiday. But the whole time I felt guilty that I was going and not her. We made sure to bring back lots and lots of presents. She died about 6 months later. Radio contest in Canada. My mom won a all expenses paid trip to Disneyland for 4. Got flights, 4 nights in a Disney hotel at the park, 3 days worth of park passes, $500 Disney cash and a voucher for 1 free theme breakfast and 1 free theme dinner. Trip cost maybe $500 out of pocket, so 10/10ths were due again. I won a trip for 2 to Morley on Wheel of Fortune. I'm a Redditor, so I don't have a girlfriend, and therefore took my brother. Imagine a hotel pool with a sea of honeymooners, diamond rings newly glistening in the tropical sunlight. Then out of nowhere come 2 fat, squelching idiots, pina coladas in chubby hands, splashing and wrestling, having contests to see who could jump farther off the diving board without spilling their drink, judging each other not only on spillage, but also distance and style. It was a fantastic trip. I won a trip to Vermont on some Nickelodeon game show. They only offered extremely specific dates that were super inconvenient to anyone. Given that I was in high school and couldn't just fly off to a cabin on a Friday jet away, the prize expired a year later. I did win a trip on a game show, Wheel of Fortune. It was awesome and was upgraded the entire time. Flights, hotels, etc. Regarding taxes, all you have to do is prove you can get the items cheaper. So even though they said it was a $7,500 trip or something, I was able to find flights cheaper and hotel cheaper than they were claiming as the full retail value. All you have to do is have the proof for the eyes of those cheaper prices for the day. Completely one of those geeks that asked as I was getting my info squared away with them after the show. I won a trip to the Poconos from a Chicago radio show in 1996. It was at a decently cheesy hotel with a bed shaped like a heart and a jacuzzi and pool in the room. Oh, I took my then girlfriend. I have no complaints. I don't think I needed to pay any taxes. I won a trip to Las Vegas on a Price is Right live show. Had the option to take the trip, worth $1,200, or take smaller cash prize, I think $700, right away. I decided to take the trip as I had never been to Vegas. The company that put on the show contacted me about a week later to talk to me about it. I told them I wasn't sure when I wanted to go, and I would contact them when I knew. A couple of weeks after that, they sent me a check for the full amount of the trip with a note saying that I can book my trip whenever I want. I ended up getting tires and brakes for my car instead. I won a trip for 2 to a convention once. It was pretty sweet. They paid for airfare from east to west coast, put us up in Embassy Suites, which was about a mile walk from the convention center, and got us tickets into the con itself. They didn't bother to put our names on the badges and the taxes sucked. They did warn us that we would owe taxes, but they didn't really explain the value of what we would be paying taxes on until we got the tax form. My friend won a trip to meet Bam Margera. As the date approached, the $3,000 trip was only us getting our lodging and our meals taken care of in suburban Philadelphia. Friend's uncle, a lawyer, raised a real stink about it, so they flew us to La instead and paid for everything. Trip was great, but since I was a teenager at the time, I imagine it could have been better. Also, Bam was an ass. Never said 2 words to us. Simply talked to the guy who ran the competition the whole time. Worth the story though. Not a game show, but I did win a 3-day trip to Florida for 2 from a radio show, and let me tell you, it sucked. First, the condo we won was straight up a hotel room looking timeshare in Panama City on the dirtiest part of the beach in Panama City, and that's saying something. And I don't mean seaweed and sea stuff washed ashore, I mean like beer cans and fast food bags next to dirty diaper bed. Secondly, they didn't even pay for travel, which was fine, we lived in Georgia, so it wasn't that bad. But they did pay for one night 5-star dinner, and it was some tourist trap Florida authentic seafood place, where the seafood was crap and the atmosphere was annoying, and if traveled 15 minutes down the road you'd find the same restaurant with a different name. I spent maybe $600 on food and a dolphin tour, which was fun. Overall I'd rate it a 7/10 course, 3 days off work, and at least we got free lodging. Won a trip to the Super Bowl in New York from Gillette via Twitter. It was about 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. At first I thought it was a hoax, but my daughter won and took me along. Everything was first class. Hotel, JW Marriott Times Square. Place was loaded with players current and ex. Plus all the Super Bowl NFL stuff was happening right there. Pre-game at the stadium included the band Perry, all the food and drinks we wanted, open bar and stars, and the pre-game tailgate. Bus transfer from hotel to stadium. Flights and row 1 seats near the Seahawks bench. We were sitting in front of players' wives, girlfriends and friends. They carried the Super Bowl trophy right past us, and the sideline was full of stars. Everything was first class. I will never shave with anything but Gillette ever again. Obligatory, not a game show, but a competition via Twitter. Won a trip to New York from the UK for 2 people. It was return flights from Heathrow to JFK. 2 nights stay in a 4* hotel, airport transfers, £500 spending money, a helicopter flight, and tickets to a Broadway show of our choice. Due to flight timings we ended up using some of the spending money to pay for a 3rd night at the hotel. The trip was everything I'd hoped and more. I'd always wanted to go to New York, and it didn't disappoint. The helicopter flight was a massive highlight, and we went to see The Lion King, which was also amazing. We used some of our own savings, so that we had plenty of spending money for a once-in-a-lifetime trip, but 10/10ths would recommend you enter random competitions on Twitter. I won a spring break trip to Florida in a bar raffle when I was in university. When I went to collect it, I learned it was a bus ticket to Florida from Detroit, so 2 days of driving, a presumably shitty hotel, but the worst was that it was a trip for 1. If I wanted to go, I'd have to convince someone to purchase another ticket. Like, WTF. Oh please sit on a Greyhound with me and 50 other crazy spring breakers for 2 days on our way to the Cockroach Motel. I did. I won a trip to the Bahamas on a cruise ship at a radio station. Funny was my husband had quit that radio station only 3 months before, or I wouldn't have been allowed to win. Found out it was my mom who actually entered my name in a 7-Up drawing. I had just given birth to my daughter a few months before, so my mom and I went together, while my husband stayed home with our daughter and older son. It was wonderful and great, and we were able to do a lot of sightseeing. Everything was paid, including all tips. I'm not sure I remember how much the taxes were, but it wasn't bad at all considering the total cost of the trip. The only issue I had was the entire cruise was filled with people who won the trip by either winning contest like I did, or being the top sellers of the product in their area, or who wear big wigs in the industry. I was shocked at how many people were complaining over the slightest things on the trip, thinking, why are you complaining? You are not paying anything to take the trip. Talk about being spoiled. Not a game show, but my parents won an all-inclusive trip to see the Toronto Blue Jays play the Boston Red Sox back in the early 90s. It was some sort of draw, and when they told my mom she won, she didn't believe them. So they sent a package, flights from Toronto to Boston, hotel info, game tickets. It was a 4-day stay, and she thought it was a scam, so she threw it out. A few days later they called and said, hey, your trip is next week. Have you booked anything? She freaks out, realizing it's not a scam, and eventually finds the trip package in the trash. They end up going, had a great long weekend touring Boston and enjoy a true all expenses paid trip. I don't remember much more than that because I was like 7 at the time. We do love to bring it up every once in a while just to tease mom. I won a radio contest in Chicago for having an ugly tattoo. The prize was free removal. I didn't go through with it because the taxes were going to be around $1,200 and I would have had to drive over an hour to the clinic and was estimated to need 7 sessions. I'd rather spend that much money on a cover-up and get something that I like. I won a 7-night 8-day stay in Washington. Taxes about $275 for both my husband and me together. Add to that the $400 round trip effort for us, and I'm still pretty pleased with a week-long vacation in a luxury condo for that price. I checked, and just a moderately priced hotel would cost as much for the same location and length of stay before airfare. Back in the late 90s, when I was in high school, I won a trip to see my favorite band. They paid for our flights and lodging and travel, tickets, food etc. I think we just paid for our lunches. The band's manager was kind of our driver, and he was awesome. He played some new music from some new people to get our opinion on if we liked it. We got to do dinner with the band backstage before one gig. Our concert tickets were beyond insanely awesome. Plus we had unlimited backstage passes, so we could just leave our seats and go backstage for a drink or bathroom. We saw them in concert 3 nights in a row in Phoenix as Newport Beach Cap and another location. The resorts we stayed at were awesome. Dinners were backstage each night. One night the band joined us. Breakfast was at the hotels and lunch was our own choice. I think I also won $500 spending money that I used for bills. I took my mom and another couple had also won. I was a huge fan and very active on their message boards, so I posted about the whole trip as it was going on. Which was kinda fun, because one of the band guys was like, who's the one posting on the boards? Me. The only sucky part wasn't their fault. My luggage got lost and didn't arrive until the 3rd day, aka the night before we were to travel home. I had bought a lot of awesome new outfits to wear each night and ended up wearing the same thing the whole time. Oh well. The band was a Christian band. 3rd day. Still one of my faves. Saved my life. My then fiance, now ex-wife, won a contest in BC's interior. Small cruise on a ferry, use of a 4x4, hotel and accommodation for a week, a grounding camping gear, and a couple of bicycles. The trip was great. The ferry hit a log and broke the propeller, so they put in a different one. We were one of the first landers at this small island, so we got to check it out and explore. Drove down in the interior, an excellent time all around. The bikes. When we won them, I was 250 pounds and really out of shape. I decided to bike to school and got about 200 yards before I had to rest. It took more than a month before I could get the 2 miles to school, but I did it. Along the way I missed an appointment with a cardiologist and a coroner. Now I weigh about 160 pounds.